All right, last section of the book. This is going to be super interesting to close with, right? And lots of good topics to discuss. I'm super excited. So let's get started.
Yep, let's do it.
Cool. So one of the questions in chapter 14, actually chapter 13, we are in chapter 13 now, right? Which is invest in education.
Yeah.
This is a very important topic. And one question that keeps coming is, should you go to a public school or should you go to a private school? What did you take away and, from this reading this chapter, and what's your experience with that?
Yeah, it depends again. Um, I would I would side with the author. He's really, I think, biased towards public schools because mostly, at least in the United States, Western countries, the public school system is really good. So I think taking advantage of public school is much better than paying a lot of money for the private schooling. Because in the end, net, what you gain a little more than what you would have gained if you just do public schooling is very little, according to the author, and he's even tried to quantify that in his book. I agree with the author that public schooling is much better, unless the public school in your district or where your kids go is really not dysfunctional and there is safety concerns, and obviously it's a no-brainer, then you send your kids to private school. That's why I said it depends. Right, he really talks about and gives a lot of numbers around this.
Is the costs very different between the two?
It is very different, right? Yeah, it's if I were to generalize, when this book was written, it was about $2,000 versus $20,000 for a typical kid. If you have to send let's say a middle school kid to private school versus public school. Public school, obviously, you're paying your taxes, and the government is already taking care of it.
So it's
Apart
like
from that,
10x, like 2,000
yeah,
versus
yeah,
20,000 a year.
easily. I think not even
Wow.
2x. If I go by my own experience, my kids don't go to private school, and we don't spend other than few outings that they have and some campings, and that's few $100s here and there. Versus if I were to send my kid to a private school, I think it's about $2,500 per month. I don't know about it, but it's a huge difference, right?
Cost is a
Yeah,
huge differentiator, but you're saying that you don't get as much in return. And is there
I
like a
in my
minimum
experience.
threshold for those schools to have certain rating, you think? Or at what point you would say, hey, this public school is not a good idea? Is there like some
If
measure you have?
Yeah, if your kid's safety jeopardized, that's a non-negotiable thing, right? So obviously you don't want to send your kid to a school that's unsafe. And obviously the school is dysfunctional and your kid is not learning anything, then yeah, right? There's a line between um, whether private school or not, public school or not, is like, is your kid learning? Is your kid safe? Is your kid happy?
Mm.
Right, among all of the kids, and also the author highlighted this one thing I had not recognized, is that if the school is has a good relationship with the parents of the kids, and how involved the parents are with the school functioning, right? That is a very good indicator. If there are a lot of parents active in the school's administration informally and taking care of all the extracurricular activities and stuff, that's a very good signal, at least in my experience. And the author also highlights it in the book. This was a good takeaway from
Yeah.
the this chapter, right?
And
Yeah.
somewhere there I read that $1 million per child is how much you really need in the United States. Do you kind of agree, or is it like, is it still like, I was a little shocked. I'm like, wow, $1 million per child? That's too much for the whole education. Is that, what's
Yeah,
your take on that?
I would tend to agree with the kind of inflation we will face in the future and the cost going up, especially the tuition costs, right? I would agree. Um, yeah, yeah. It sounds big,
Yeah.
$1 million, but I think with a bachelor's and a master's, definitely it would cost, right?
Wow. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a huge number. And then is there ways in which you can, like, he mentioned something about 529 plans, and I didn't even know about that.
529
Like,
plans.
what
Yeah,
can
yeah.
we do to save and get some benefits?
It's just like your retirement account, except that it pays for your kids' education, right? So you can invest every month. I don't know what the limits are. I do it. So and then you can choose where choose the investment within the 529 plan. So I think I've chosen the broad market index.
Mhm.
Um,
So
and
benefits is
the
that you invest and you don't have to pay taxes, or what is the benefit?
Yeah, you don't have to pay taxes on the gains that you had, the capital gains that you have on your investment, right? So that pays for your kids' education. I think that's brilliant, right? I mean, that's the struggle that I have. I think I don't know if your viewers also have this kind of struggle is how much to invest into 529 plan. You don't want to over-invest also, right? Like, yeah, if your kid is going to a bachelor's degree, it costs you about 200K overall, and then you invested 500K, right? Then if you draw that 300K out, then you would be taxed for the gains, and also you would have to pay a fine of 10% if you are in withdrawing it for non-educational purpose. Like for example, you're not paying for your kid for education or your education, or one good thing is you can roll that over if you have a second kid, and even if there's residual, you can just roll that over for your grandkids as well. So yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Oh, while you were answering, I was able to Google. So the 529s don't have a limit, contribution limit. But as you
Oh, they
said, I
don't?
think you were referring to $17,000 per donor in 2023, which is tax exclusive because it's considered
Uh,
as a tax, federally tax gift to an individual. So basically, if you don't want to pay those gift related issues, then you just
uh-huh.
stay below 17,000 is what you were referring to. There's some high number, which is 17,000 per donor. So maybe
Mm,
you and your wife both can put in as much without having to deal with gift tax exclusion. Uh,
yeah.
so quite high.
Yeah,
Numbers quite
it's
high for to
it's
start
quite
with.
high. Yeah, yeah.
Cool.
I had done some research. Now I fail to remember what the limits are, but yeah, it's easy to find
Yeah.
out. You can just Google like just how you did right now. Yeah.
Yeah. On that point, the last piece was should you get an MBA?
Ah, yeah, the author has done his MBA from UC Berkeley High School of Business, just like us. He understands the sacrifices and the costs that he had to pay. And if you're asking me, or even you, if you please, you should share your opinion. I think it depends again, right? I mean, personally, for me, I think the MBA was worth the cost. Also, we just graduated recently. The cost was about 200K. It has acted as a catalyst in my career, at least. I've changed my job mid my MBA. I switched to a more responsible role, got a bigger title in the company. So the MBA definitely helped. It helped boosted my confidence as well. I don't know about you. What is your opinion, Kunal, around getting an MBA or not?
Yeah, so I think MBA is totally worth it, especially if you do it from a school which has a good curriculum, right? Just
Yeah.
the degree itself may not be as valuable because you could do the
Hmm.
same for free on YouTube, but
Yeah.
so the degree itself may not be as valuable unless you have a good cohort from whom you learn, and as you said, unless you're challenged and you are not in this conventional thinking where you don't challenge the status quo, which is one of the defining leadership principle at
Yeah.
Berkeley.
Of
So you need
yeah.
a school that is future looking, and in terms of
Yeah.
principles, curriculum that is like top of the class, and
Yeah.
and a cohort which is really good from whom you can learn. If you
Yeah,
don't get these things, I don't think an MBA with so much money is worth any money, because
absolutely. That's true.
um, but
Yeah.
if you do focus on getting into the right ones, then absolutely you will learn so many lifelong skills that, to give an example, I've been managing for over 10 years now, small and mid-sized teams. Um, but did I get to learn anything about it formally? No, I didn't. I didn't even know like how businesses work. This was during the MBA that the first time I understood how to even read a financial account. I was that bad. So every time, every quarter, my company used to say, "Hey, this is our financial results." I'm like, "Oh, is the number positive? Great. Yes. Is it increasing? Yes. Is it better than some other XYZ company? Yes. Okay, then it's good." But that's that's the latest I did after like 40 years being in the industries. But it was pretty bad. And so I just realized it only after doing it that I can understand things a little bit more in depth, and I can appreciate various disciplines and actually be a better partner with, like, let's say, a product manager, a marketing person, an engineering leader, or a strategist in operations. At least I know why they're saying makes
Mm.
sense, and that
Yeah.
why the urgency with which they want me to do things makes sense. Before I was like, okay, he or she's in the position of power. I just got to do it. Just do it, right? And it didn't really come from an authentic self of knowing why. But now at least I
Mm.
know a little bit more where I can appreciate and do really good work. So I feel every second of the learning there in an MBA program was worth it. And one, if you are passionate to learn more and you want to be a lifelong learner, which is what an MBA will do, that's the best thing you can do. It can, get you to keep learning, like what we're doing here. We're
Yeah.
learning from each
Yeah.
other in our experience. We're learning
Yeah.
through new books.
Absolutely.
We can continue
Yeah.
to do that. I think that's the best thing that an MBA can do. Like
Yeah.
you had a huge transformation with personal breakthrough with the job change, which is itself huge. But it
Yeah.
is just the beginning. I feel you will see, if you see 20 years from now, you will see it has compounded
Oh,
uh,
yeah.
the best
I
way
think so.
possible. So yeah, I am a big supporter of doing it.
Yeah, I'm a big supporter of education, generally, and higher education too.
Yep,
You get that confidence, and you just get that calmness that you know at least a little bit.
exactly.
The more you know, the more calmer you are. I feel.
Yep,
Yeah.
that,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's the
The
part.
well, the more you know, the more you also realize how much less you know. You know what I mean?
Exactly, exactly. And then that makes you humble, right? And that
Yep.
makes you more authentic, because people know that you're not a cocky, leader who thinks he knows or everything, but actually doesn't know anything. So it's a
I've
good
seen a
thing.
couple in my career.
Talk to me more about it. Cool. That's a topic we can go on and on. Let's go to the next one. Um,
Yeah. It's the topic of the next chapter is called Nurture Your Love. I think the author is trying to wrap this whole book with all these topics towards the end, saying, okay, one is education that we spoke about in the previous chapter, and this chapter is about, okay, what about love? Like we spoke about money throughout the book, but it's useless if you don't have love, or you feel very lonely in life, right? He talks about nurture your love. What were some of the takeaways for you from this chapter, Kunal?
yeah, I think Monish Pobrai, who's one of the
Mm-hmm.
investors who paid like insane amount of money, 650 plus $1,000 to have a lunch with Warren Buffett
Oh,
many
did
years
he?
ago.
I didn't know that. Oh.
Yeah, and um, in that, Monish's two daughters asked Warren Buffett, like, "Hey, what's the biggest piece of advice you have for me?" And Warren
Mm.
Buffett was like, "Hey, if you can remember one thing out of this whole, you know, day out with me as a grandfather," he actually just treated them as being grandfather. He said,
Sure.
"Hey, who you marry and how you treat them is going to be the biggest important decision in your life, right?"
Mm-hmm.
And so if you don't marry someone who has the same set of values as you.
Yeah.
And if you don't invest in your relationship with them, then you're just not going to be successful, period. And he said that for various reasons. And this book clearly tells you why it's important. Because see,
Mm.
if you marry someone, they were, before marrying you, they were financially independent,
Mm.
right? Not financially independent, but maybe at least they had their own independence of what to do with their money that they had in their bank account.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But just the
Exactly.
fact
It was
that they
not
married
intertwined.
you shouldn't now restrict them from access to their money. So one of the
Yeah.
key principles I liked and implemented was, me and my wife both have separate bank accounts
Yeah.
as well, and she gets to decide at her own cadence what's important. We have certain values which we and budgets that are shared across both that we agreed to, which is what makes sense. We also have joint accounts where we can easily transfer money between, makes it easier.
Hmm.
So how you treat your financial partner and your life
Hmm.
partner, and how much time you spend with them in nurturing that relationship is super important,
Yeah.
because we've seen all of these layoffs going on as we speak, January 2023.
Yeah. It's
The
horrible.
job market is it is in turmoil with
Yeah.
several thousands of people on street looking for a job.
Yeah.
Who do you think they have the best time with at this point? Who's supporting them right now? It's their
Yeah.
family, it's their
Yeah.
wife, is their husband, or is their partner, or their children, right? Those are
Yeah.
the people that you need to remember at the depth of it while you do this side hustles and really get to financial independence. But the journey of investing with your family is super,
Yeah.
and friends is super
Yeah.
important, because
Yeah.
those are going to be your constant sources of happiness, support, and
Yeah.
when you really need them, because
Yeah.
they're going to be there much more than your job is ever going to be
Yeah.
at
Totally.
any given company. And so really keep that perspective in mind, and spending time with your children when they're young and being able to provide them the right culture and values,
Yeah.
by
Yeah.
building real life experiences with them
Yeah.
as to why is it important to have budget, or important to have financial prudence, or why it's important to take pride in making money and saving it, right?
Hmm.
And why is
Hmm.
it important that money is powerful, and how you can use it? So all of
Yeah.
these things are super critical, which one may lose track if they don't invest in their life partner by choosing the right one in the first place. Because if you choose
Yeah.
someone who completely is not aligned with your values, then you're screwed. Your whole life is
Yeah.
screwed unless
True.
you part ways. And
Very true.
so yeah, those were some of the key takeaways. Like, how do you invest your time, energy, share principles with your better half, your
Yeah.
partner,
Yeah.
time with your family, parents who spend so much time raising you, and your children.
Yeah.
Super important. So spend that time and then buy appropriate insurances. I'm not an expert in that, but like he talks about lots of things that I need to dig in, which is like term insurance and others. I don't have
Yeah.
any of that,
Me
but
too.
he's just saying protect the downside. Let's say you are the breadwinner in your
Yeah.
family, and all of a sudden you're like, hit by a bus for whatever reason. What do you do? So that was a key insight on this one. The next section of this was chapter 15, which is how to how to live. Let's say you've become rich, like,
Yeah.
and you are financially independent. Like,
Yeah.
why should one live in the stealth mode that he talks about? Like, why be stealthy? And what are some examples on being stealthy you think is important? And do you agree with it?
Um, yeah, yeah, in this chapter he talks about whether to flaunt your wealth or be in a stealth mode, right? Um, I keep repeating these words, I guess. It depends upon your personality, depends on what industry you're in, depends on the values you carry, right? For example, if you're in a industry where you're teaching people to be rich, it's important for you to flaunt your wealth, right? Because because people want to see you successful. Otherwise, why would they follow you, right? You want to have a nice flashy car, a home, and they see you drive a Lamborghini. They know this guy is he's got something. He's made money, right, from however he did. It's important for that person to show off his wealth. Whereas others who are not in that industry, it's generally the author advises that it's not good to show off your wealth because it attracts a lot of attention. With attention comes risks, right? I mean, people could just sue you for a small thing because they think you can afford to part some of your wealth, right? People are jealous. Not everybody's hardworking. But they don't know the struggle that person went through to make the money. So they always want a share of the pie. That's why the author suggests be in stealth mode, and he talks about how you can live in the stealth mode. For example, if you can afford a Mercedes-Benz SUV, you drive a Toyota Corolla or the Subaru like myself. Um, right? So you're in a stealth mode. Not that I'm saying that I'm wealthy or not. I'm very, very far from there. I can't afford a luxury car, but drive a Honda Civic or a Subaru. Right? So he talks about don't get expensive automobiles. It's not a good thing. Right. So yep. What do you think, Kunal?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the key piece that you mentioned was unnecessary attention, right? Which
Mm-hmm.
was, you
Unnecessary
talked about
attention.
an
Exactly.
example of people will sue you because they can get more out of you. That's
Sure.
an easy example. I like it. But also, like, if you do have that Lamborghini, you may be susceptible to more car scratches as well, because people are like, hey,
Sure. Oh,
people
for sure.
just play around with. So unnecessary
Sure.
attention is huge, right? Like, you're better off. You have limited heartbeats on this planet. And so better off
Yeah.
not to be taken your time away by these distractions where you have to deal with things that are, so that's huge. I fully agree. And but there is some balance around how do you keep sanity with this as well, because every place where you live has its own culture of living and being and behaving.
Yeah.
So as long as you
Yeah.
keep the bare minimum sanity, you'd be fine.
Yeah.
And there's this other aspect that he talks about, which is like, should you do it yourself, or should you outsource work? What's your take there?
Work,
Like,
the work, right?
yeah.
Yeah. He's like DIY or outsource stuff. I think it depends again. There's a line between things like if you are making more dollars per hour than how much you have to spend to get the work done per hour, it's a no-brainer, right? You don't do it yourself, right? And if you're sitting idle and you don't have anything to do, then yeah, you can do things yourself, right? He tries to quantify that, and also he highlights some of the risks associated with doing it yourself. Like, right, for example, personally, I have some debris on my roof after the fall. I got to clean it. And I was thinking of getting a ladder and climbing up the roof and just blowing the leaves off, or just the debris off of my roof. Um, but if I slip and fall down, what is the cost? How much am I saving by not calling somebody to clean my roof, a professional, right? Um, if you fall off a roof, it may be several thousands, and how much you will be out of commission from your work, and you'll be losing a lot of money. Versus pay $1,000 to somebody who just comes and cleans the roof and gets off of your roof and gone. You're done, right? So it depends, I guess. All right, that's my thought, and the author also talks about, sends us a similar message. Right? What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, actually, this point around calculating how much you make and then using that as the bar, I found that to be too of an extreme, because it's going to be like, oh, everything I should outsource. If I have to, like, make that much money per hour of my full-time role, then I don't think anything makes sense. For example, if I had to do groceries at Costco, should I just do
Hmm.
it myself? Drive up 10 minutes? It's not that far, like less than 10 minutes from where I live. And then do another 30 minutes of going around with that cart, and then another 10 minutes to load it and then drive it. So about an hour minimum. Like if I had to do that, and then I'm like, okay, if I had to just order this online, the same thing. Should I just order this online or should I just go myself?
Hmm.
Then I had to do like, oh, hourly, if I make this much, is it better to pay this? Then every math just comes to like I should just outsource, right? But what I felt was that's one way to think about it, but the other way is to think about like what activities you
Hmm.
freeing your mind a little bit,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
these repetitive activities is what machines don't thrive in, right? Like machines can be optimum efficient and just do the work, grind out. If we become like those machines who just keeps grinding because I have this formula that I'm just going to outsource because I just do this well,
Yeah.
then you will not have this recharging mechanism where your mind is doing some things in a repetitive mode, like even like playing a guitar, for that example. I'm like, I'll never be able to play a guitar for if I have to do this, should I?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
there are
Yeah.
things that get you recharged, or that get you um, relax a little bit from the monotony of life or the stresses of life. Then even if it doesn't pay you, it may be worth doing it yourself. And that's the thing that, as you said, it depends on like what your personality is and your circumstances. But if you are able, then it's better to not just automate everything, because then life will just continue to become empty. And
Yeah.
so there's that balance of what do you enjoy doing, what gets you break. Like I really miss commuting, because right now it's counterintuitive, because people are like, hey,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
that commute was like a switch for me, which is like, hey, I'm going to
Yeah.
work, I'm going to be in the work mode, and then when I'm moving out
Yeah.
of office, it's a switch. I'm done. I'm moving out home. Right now, everything is blurred, right?
Yeah.
So it's a huge thing that we compromise when
Yeah.
we don't have this commute as like, oh, why should I? Anyone should commute? No, outsource commuting. We can't. But then it has benefits. So that's the high level I think about this one.
No, nicely put. Nicely put. To your point, I like going shopping to Costco because there's always something new you can, and especially in the electronics department, I just like checking out the TVs and the speakers and stuff
Yeah,
like that. It's yeah, you can't think like a machine and put a formula for everything. Like, yeah,
exactly.
just do something you like. My wife likes going to grocery shopping. It's a break. We could always easily order online, but she just likes to buy groceries herself.
Exactly.
So, yeah, it
So
depends. Like, yeah, right. So, yeah, yep.
totally. So that concludes the book. If there was one thing, Guru, that you wanted to take away for the audience, what would that be? What's that one thing?
Personally, I felt like the author highlights in the summary of this book that give it a try. If you wanted to do something, give it a try. What's the worst thing that could happen? It may not work out, but at least you'll be satisfied that you tried. And he talks about an example that a person always wanted to be a chef, and she tried it out. She quit her job in the finance industry, tried to work in the food services industry in the kitchen of a restaurant, and then she got yelled at throughout her work in the hotel, and for what, $15 per hour pay or whatever, right? And she didn't like it, but she tried, and now she knows, and she went back to the banking industry, and she is focusing all the more in the banking job that she had. Now that she knows, she tried what she wanted to do, and then she didn't like it, right? So yep, give it a try if you want to do something. And I think I can just go back in some of the things that I wanted to do and I didn't do. Those are the regrets that even I felt, oh, you know what, I should have just tried it. Right. So, yep, that's one big takeaway from this book for me.
Wow. Yeah,
Yep.
that's a very powerful
What
one.
about
You
you?
said, yeah, I agree with what you said, which was minimizing regrets in life, right? That's huge. So for me, the biggest one was think in probabilities and have a bias towards action, right? Where I really like the 70-30 rule of like,
Yeah,
don't think about
absolutely.
getting to an absolute answer because in life there is no absolute
Yeah,
answer. Should you do an MBA? Should you not do an MBA? Should you invest
yeah,
in equity or bonds? Should you
yeah,
save for retirement now or not? All of these questions are tough questions. And so
yeah,
the biggest learning for me was not to think in absolutes and paralyze yourself by not taking action. And
yeah,
I've seen that with this, close to 15 chapters in this book, he's covered more than 150 questions, which are all questions that people can be stuck on, which is like, hey, I will not act. I will not invest in equity because it's like, I don't understand it. And but
yeah,
if we, for all of those 150 plus questions, if we start thinking in probabilities, it's like, hey, what is the chance of me having an unfair advantage, which is like a 70% chance that this will work. And if you
yeah,
do it for large number of decisions, you may not be right for the first decision, even if your probability is 70-30 and your forecasting algorithm is flawed because you said it's 70, but if you ask 10 other people, they would have said it's less than 10%. So you got
yeah,
to improve your algorithm to get to that forecasting ability. But think in probabilities, which is
yeah,
and then take action. Take the first step,
yeah,
learn from it, and then improve your probability. Take the first action and learn from it. So all of these 150 plus things that we talked about, these are biasing us to take action because without action, the savings account will keep having the money that it has and you make no money and
yeah,
you will not be financially independent. So that was
yeah,
one of the big
yeah.
ones for me.
No, no, that's great. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Thinking in probabilities is such a eye opener for me from this book, the 70-30 rule,
Mhm.
right? And you and I were talking offline about this, right? So in the recent example, I'll talk about Tesla. I wanted to invest in Tesla when it was at around $125 recently. This is January 2023. And what's the probability of it being less than $125 in the next few years? Is it is it 20%? Is it 80%, 90%? I think it's just about 20% or less that it will be less than $125. The chances of it being higher than $300 or even let's say 250 or $200, the chances of it being that is more than 70%, right? Again, applying 70-30 rule here. So I was thinking in an absolute way, oh, when it reaches $100, I'm going to buy, which should hit that $100 threshold. It came down to 101 and it bounced back. So I never made that move.
What is it now?
It's about 180, I think, or
Ooh,
179.
it's 80% change.
If from it came down to, see, if you think about absolutes, it came down, my absolute number was $100. And that's how nature plays with you. I think, you know what, I'm going to tease you. I'm going to come down to 101, then bounce back right away. And if I were to think about it in a probabilistic way, like how the author highlights, I probably would have pulled the trigger when it was about 125. So it's not about absolutes. I think it's about probabilities. I love that point. Thanks for highlighting
Yeah.
from this book. Yeah, yeah,
That's the best
yeah.
example to end with. I think that was a very powerful example you shared. If you had thought in probabilities, a lot of money would have been made. But yeah, that's a learning. We all learn. But thank you for
We
sharing
all
that.
learn.
And with
Of
that, we'll
course,
end this. Yeah, it was
of
a blast.
course.
Thank you for all the
Yes, it
time.
was. Yeah, thanks everybody.
Thank you.